Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestle News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. Had a great weekend, having a good Monday so far. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today, so let's get straight into today's big stories. And let's start about talking about Jay White once again, because Jay White is certainly an interesting story right now. Is he going to go to WWE? Is he actually leaving New Japan? Is he just working everyone? What's the situation with his contract? There is so much misinformation and hearsay about what's actually going on with Jay White right now. It's actually it's difficult to find out what is fact and what is fiction, but we have a bit more information because there is some news and an update on what Jay White told AEW regarding his New Japan contract status, I believe last year or a couple of years ago. So it was reported the other day that WWE are making, quote, a strong play for New Japan Pro Wrestling star Jay White, and that White had many people supporting him within WWE. Now, these reports came after White had quit New Japan following his loss to Kota Ibushi at Day 2 of Wrestle Kingdom 15 for the IWGP Heavyweight and Intercontinental Championships. Now, on the latest edition of the Wrestling Observer radio show, Dave Meltzer gave some more context to White's status within New Japan. He prefaced first by saying he had not spoken to anyone in New Japan, or he has not spoken with Jay White as of yet, but on the latest edition of the Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer said that at this time, White, when AEW, when they were putting AEW together, they were talking about which stars they could sign, and one of those names was Jay White. Now, at the time, White told AEW that he had signed a 7-year contract. Now, it's unknown whether or not this is true, or whether Jay White is still under this original deal, or if things have changed, plans changed, whatever has changed. It's unknown right now whether or not any of that is indeed accurate. But at the time, Jay White told AEW that he had signed a 7-year contract. Now, there had been rumors and reports floating around on social media over the last week or so saying that actually Jay White wasn't going anywhere because he had 5 years left on a current deal with New Japan. Now, if you look at the time scale of that, that does work out if what Dave Meltzer is saying is accurate there. If in 2019... right, 2019 was when AEW started. If in 2019 Jay White's saying to AEW, I have 7 years left on a New Japan contract, fast forward 2 years later, he would have 5 years left on his current deal. So those timelines do add up. Those two timelines do make sense. Ultimately, and I know this is a boring way to look at it, ultimately we will find out very soon what is fact and what is fiction. I've always felt that Jay White won't leave New Japan. I think the reason why this story has become so big right now is because obviously Jay White quit, or said he was going to quit New Japan following Wrestle Kingdom. I think the reason they did that is because 12 months ago you had that story saying that WWE, especially Triple H, was very, very interested in Jay White. And at the time, that report 12 months ago said he had 12 months left on his current contract. The big issue and point of contention right now is, how long does Jay White have left on his deal? Some people say 5 years. Some people say it's up to expire right now. That is a massive, massive difference and massive discrepancy on two sides of the argument. One saying 5 years, one saying no time at all. So that is massive. Ultimately, we'll find out soon. Ultimately, it won't be very long until we find out what is really going to happen when it comes to Jay White. Personally, if I had to put my neck out on the line, I would say that he's going to stay, because he's mentioned several times before that he has no interest really in going to WWE. It's not on his radar. I think you look at his position in New Japan right now, he's one of, if not the top guy. I know he doesn't hold the championships right now, but in terms of top heel, top villain, he's the top heel in the company right now. Look at the offer that WWE could give him. What does that offer him? Well, obviously finances. There was some discussion, some comments on the channel, which I really appreciate, that said actually he's a native of Florida, and when he travels over to Japan for these tours, he travels over with other Florida residents like Tama Tonga and stuff like that. So that would be interesting. That would mean that he could stay local. If he competed for WWE, he could stay at home. Obviously, you're traveling during a pandemic, which is not easy. That is a lot of trials and tribulations that come with that, and the health and safety precautions that come with that as well. And then obviously finances. WWE, there's no doubt, can offer him a massive deal, probably the biggest contract of his career. But you do have to look at his age. He's 28 years old. He's got a plethora of time available to him to become a big star in the pro wrestling business. He really does have the world at his feet right now. Is WWE as well, from a creative point of view, is that really the most alluring offer right now? Is that really the biggest offer of I'm going to be so creatively satisfied in WWE right now? I don't know if he would be. There is certainly a lot up in the air when it comes to that. You've heard these horror stories over the course of the last few years of people going to WWE, creative not being what they would like it to be, politics, bureaucracy, the different levels of communication, scripted promos, scripted shows, chaos backstage. Is that something at 28 years old Jay White really wants to step into? So there's certainly a lot of decisions to be made there, but ultimately, if those reports are factually accurate in the sense that when he was speaking to AEW, he had 7 years left on a contract, and now he has 5 years left on it, it's not even really a point of discussion of if he would be going to WWE because it's not going to happen. The real point of discussion now is, are those reports about his contract accurate, or frankly, which report is accurate? So once we find out more, of course, we'll talk about it here on the channel, but it's certainly a story that's going to rumble on, I would suspect, over the next couple of weeks. Let's move on and talk about Kurt Angle and talk about Raw Legends Night, because of course 7 days ago it was Raw Legends Night on the USA Network. WWE would consider it a success, of course. It did well in the ratings, or well in recent months for the ratings. But the question would be, as we spoke about before, what happens next? What next? What's going to happen this week? Well, the ratings going to be like this week when it comes to Raw. We can talk about that till the cows come home, frankly. But one of the names that was advertised to be on last week's Raw Legends Night but never appeared was Kurt Angle. Now, during a Q&A on his official Facebook page, the former Olympic gold medalist and WWE champion revealed why he missed the show. He said, quote, "I had a prior engagement that I was committed to. I couldn't get out of it." Now, Angle, of course, wasn't the only one who was advertised to be on the show and never appear. As we spoke about previously, Carlito was advertised to be on the show but never appeared. So did Candice Michelle. Kurt Angle, of course, was one of the many WWE talents that were released last year, back in April, due to cutbacks associated with the current ongoing pandemic. This is just, we hear more and more about it when it comes to this Raw Legends Night, those legends that were advertised and didn't appear. It does seem like, well, it certainly tells the story of what was the idea behind this Raw Legends Night, right? The discussion about, was this reactionary? Was this all part of the plan? Obviously it was reactionary because they advertised all of these talents and some of them didn't appear. They advertised all of these talents and creatively they really had nothing for them. They were just cameos backstage. It was a pure ratings grab, and the fact that you've got Carlito, some say that he was never going to appear, then some say he saw the creative and said, not for me, why would I travel for a 2-minute cameo during a pandemic? You've also got them advertising Kurt Angle when he couldn't appear anyway because he had a prior engagement. You've got them advertising Candice Michelle, who was never contacted. To me, it just confirms that this was a massive ratings grab and it was very reactionary. The planning was very last minute and they were trying to put together this show at the last minute and trying to get as many people in, but frankly, they were falsely advertising some of the names, and it is quite alarming that that's the chaos backstage right now, especially when it comes to Raw. We'll talk about the chaos when it comes to Raw. Keith Lee really opens up an insight into that at the moment. Let's talk about something when it comes to the WWE Network, because the eagle-eyed viewers for the WWE Network have noticed that WrestleMania 24 is currently unavailable on the WWE Network right now. Now, historically, this probably isn't a massive story because historically pay-per-views have been pulled temporarily in the past due to music rights issues, like a contract coming to an end. This is according to PW Insider. It would probably be a scenario where WWE just has to re-edit whichever segment needs adjusting, and they'll likely re-upload the WWE WrestleMania 24 up to the network very soon. That's probably going to be the case there, but it's certainly interesting and certainly will get people talking as to what is the issue of WrestleMania 24 right now. What's the music deal that's coming to an end? What segment do they need to re-upload? So once it gets re-uploaded, I'm sure the eagle-eyed viewers of the WWE Network will probably have a look at the pay-per-view and see what has changed from the original. Certainly is interesting though whenever anything gets pulled, because it sometimes is an indicator of what is to come, of something on the horizon in the future. When you come to Sting stuff getting pulled, Bret Hart stuff getting pulled, it always is very interesting. So we'll keep an eye on that going forward. We have some interesting information when it comes to WWE India as well, because back in October, WWE President and Chief Revenue Officer Nick Khan revealed during an earnings call that WWE is teaming with their TV partner in India, Sony, for a 2021 event that will focus on developing new superstars from India. Now, it looks like that finally this series has been announced because WWE India broke earlier over the weekend that WWE Superstar Spectacle is coming soon. They said, quote, "Breaking now, the first ever WWE Superstar Spectacle is coming soon. Stay tuned, hashtag stay tuned, hashtag India." Now, this actually was a story that was first broke by the guys over there at Sportskeeda, Riju Dasgupta. Fantastic reporter. Be sure to check them out. He's been really all over this story, and he's been the first to break all of these exclusives when it comes to this. So if you want to have any information or any details, be sure to check that out. We'll link it in the description box below. But he's also reporting over at Sportskeeda that various Raw and SmackDown superstars will actually be a part of WWE Superstar Spectacle, the upcoming show, which of course is going to be airing on Sony 10.1 and Sony 10.3 on the 26th of January. Now, it had been previously reported of some of the names of Indian talents that were going to be part of the show, but WWE Raw and SmackDown superstars could also be a part of this Superstar Spectacle later on in January. Now, some of the names that are being considered at the moment from Raw and SmackDown, and obviously these could change at any period of time, but some of the names that are being considered to also appear are the likes of Drew McIntyre, AJ Styles, Charlotte Flair, The New Day, Bayley, and Rey Mysterio. Now, in addition to the Raw and SmackDown stars, Indian talent such as Jinder Mahal, Kavita Devi, Indus Sher, WWE Superstar Spectacle is also likely to have a prominent WWE legend present. The Singh brothers are also going to be there, and there have been some other names shortlisted to appear at the event. So it's going to be a really exciting time. WWE have been looking to branch out when it comes to the Indian market for a long time. There had been those rumors when Jinder Mahal became WWE champion back in 2017, of course. Part of the reason for him becoming WWE champion was their want to expand in that market, take advantage of that market. It's a huge, huge market, obviously by population, but also by wrestling fandom. People don't realize how popular pro wrestling and how rabid that fan base is over there in India. It would be only a fool would be not wanting to take advantage of that, and WWE isn't the first to try and take advantage of that. Impact Wrestling for years have been trying to exploit that market, whether it's tours over there. They had their specials. The name misses me off the top of my head from what it was, but Jeff Jarrett, Rinka King, that was it. They filmed that over there, or that was for an Indian market as well. They've been doing this for years, and no one's really, I would say, openly, successfully managed to really exploit that market, but it's such a massive market to hit, and I think WWE are looking to finally invest in there and make it really, really big, make it explode, get some homegrown talent from there. So it's going to be really interesting. It's going to be really interesting. This is going to be a sleeper story over the next couple of weeks, because I think we're going to hear more and more details about this, and it's certainly going to be interesting to see and watch going forward. So keep an eye out for the Superstar Spectacle. It's certainly going to be interesting to watch. Let's talk about Adam Pearce, because people are still talking about Adam Pearce becoming the #1 contender for the WWE Universal Championship at the Royal Rumble, challenging Roman Reigns. Now, the two are currently set to meet at the Royal Rumble on January 31st, but Pearce has since reacted on social media to this championship opportunity. He said, quote, "Of course, I'm not in my wrestling prime. I haven't had a match in 6+ years. But I didn't ask for this. With no choice but to fight, I've got to do whatever I can to make Roman feel exactly like I did at the end of this match many years ago." Now, he linked to a match in Ring of Honor in Death Before Dishonor for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. He said also, quote, following up from that tweet, he said, quote, "And yes, I lost the match. Lost a championship that meant a lot to me. Lost a piece of myself. But in the process, I learned a lot. A lot about me. A lot about the agony of defeat. A lot about how to avoid it again. Again, I never wanted this, but sleep on me, I beg you," end quote. So he's certainly getting people hyped up, and it certainly is a match that people are talking about. Now, I spoke about this when we spoke about it on Saturday, about, are we actually going to see Roman Reigns versus Adam Pearce? Because I was part of the school of thought that he probably wouldn't have the match. I still think eventually we might end up seeing Roman Reigns versus Shinsuke Nakamura, or Roman Reigns versus Kevin Owens at the Royal Rumble. I still feel like that might have been originally the plan. However, the amount of people that have been talking about this, the amount of people that are maybe not excited, but certainly are curious to where this is leading, and curious to see Adam Pearce finally have a match inside of a WWE ring on a big platform like the Royal Rumble. I think that even if there were plans to have Roman Reigns versus Kevin Owens, even if there were plans to have Roman Reigns versus Shinsuke Nakamura at the Royal Rumble, I think possibly those plans could have changed when WWF seen the reaction to this Adam Pearce involvement in this. I think now some people in WWE might be saying, and rightfully so, frankly, you know what? This has got some buzz. This has got some people talking. There's no doubt Adam Pearce can do it. He's a phenomenal wrestler, and he was a fantastic wrestler throughout his career, and he's hardly old. He's a former, 5-time NWA World Heavyweight Champion and NWA Hall of Famer, multiple appearances in Ring of Honor as well. He's a fantastic pro wrestler, so there is no doubt that Adam Pearce can hang in this scenario. There is no doubt Adam Pearce can pull this off and have a phenomenal matchup. I have no doubts in my mind that Adam Pearce will do a fantastic job if the match does go ahead at the Royal Rumble. So I think now, legitimately, there probably is a discussion, okay, what do we do with the Royal Rumble? Do we go in this direction when it comes to maybe switching it and going with Shinsuke or Kevin Owens? Or do we say, you know what, for better or for worse, people are talking about Adam Pearce versus Roman Reigns. People are curious, even if it's morbid curiosity about what this match will entail. Let's go with it. People are talking. People are interested for a variety of reasons, but people are interested. Let's go with it. Let's see if this match can be something special, which I think it can. I don't think anyone, I certainly myself, the criticisms I had of this was never that Adam Pearce can't do the job. It was never that Adam Pearce won't sound great for Roman Reigns. It was never that Adam Pearce doesn't deserve an opportunity to be inside of a WWE ring, because all of those things he does. He absolutely does. My criticism of it was, why now? This is a story that would be better suited to a B-level show. The Royal Rumble is arguably the second biggest show of the year. You've got WrestleMania, and then for me, you've got the Royal Rumble as the second biggest show. I think that's changed over the years. Obviously, previously it was SummerSlam. For me, now it goes WrestleMania, Royal Rumble. And I just wonder, why now? This is a story that would be suited for even a SummerSlam. It would be suited for a SummerSlam. Or this is a story that would be suited for TLC back in December, or a Payback, or an Extreme Rules, or something like that. The Royal Rumble, second biggest show of the year. You don't have many opportunities throughout the year to have a big stage, and you can make a younger star, elevate them to the next level, put them in there with Roman Reigns. Everyone's talking about Shinsuke Nakamura after his performance on SmackDown on Friday, and how great it was to see him back in that position where he should be. He is a big star. He is a main event level talent. I don't care what Vince McMahon thinks about his ability to cut promos, or his ability or command of the English language, which is fine, by the way, even if in the mind of Vince McMahon it isn't. I don't care about any of that. If you had Shinsuke Nakamura versus Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble, Nakamura's back up to that level. Regardless if he wins or not, he's back up to that level, and people start to think, yes, Nakamura is a singles main eventer again, which is exactly where he should be. I just think with this Adam Pearce story, is it best suited? Why now? Why now would be my question. Why now? I'm not saying it's a bad thing or a bad story, or Adam Pearce doesn't deserve an opportunity to wrestle inside of a WWE ring, because he does. All of those. But on the second biggest show of the year, that's the big question there. I think that's the big question there. But only time will tell. And people are talking about it for better or for worse. And that's a good thing when it comes to WWE. They care about people talking about the product. They care about the traction they get on social media. They care about getting buzz, whether it's negative or positive about a storyline. They care about all that. So I think that's the important thing there when it comes to Adam Pearce and Roman Reigns. So it's certainly interesting. I, for one, am going to be watching this very closely. I, for one, am speculating already as to what's going to happen with SmackDown on Friday. So it's going to be interesting. Speaking of SmackDown, Greg Hamilton has been on social media because many fans on social media checked in on WWE SmackDown ring announcer Greg Hamilton after he was noticeably shaking while announcing the Gauntlet match on SmackDown last week. Now, Hamilton responded that that his significant other currently has COVID-19, and clearly that was on his mind during Friday night's edition of SmackDown. He said, quote, "My best friend, my wife, has COVID. I am broken. I am so broken." Hamilton later expanded on what was going on back home and wanted to give fans his best. He said, quote, "Tonight was tough. My fiancée has COVID. I am proposing to her soon, but yes, I was not at my best tonight. I owe you all an apology. You expect the best from me, and I should deliver. Tonight, I didn't. I'm sorry. She is my everything. She is sick, and I'm not there." So obviously, we send the best to Greg Hamilton's soon-to-be fiancée, wife. At the grand scheme of things, at the end of the day, it's pro wrestling. What matters is your family, your loved ones, everything like that back home. So hopefully she will recover soon, and obviously sympathies and best wishes go out to Greg Hamilton. He does a fantastic job. I think he's a very excellent ring announcer, and personally, I didn't even notice on SmackDown on Friday. I don't think he needs to worry or anything about that What he does need to focus on is the family back at home, and fingers crossed everything works out there. Important soon. But speaking of this horrible pandemic that we're in right now, Nick Jackson has detailed his battle with the virus. Nick Jackson, one half of the AEW World Tag Team Champions, the Young Bucks, has recently called out, quote, COVID deniers while revealing that he was bedridden for nearly 3 weeks upon contracting the virus back in September. He said, quote, crazy to think there's still COVID deniers out there in the world. I had a pretty bad case of COVID in early September, and that kept me bedridden for nearly 3 weeks. I couldn't taste or smell for 2.5 months. At one point, my whole body had hives on it, and my doctor said that was definitely from COVID. Nick then revealed that his brother Matt Jackson had to carry most of the load during their matches after he returned post-COVID. He said, quote, Matt had to do the majority of the work in matches once I returned safely because I couldn't catch my breath. My cardio is finally back, but it took me months to finally feel like myself again. Let's protect each other and wear a mask, end quote. Now, obviously, I totally echo what Nick Jackson is saying there. The fact that there are still some people that deny that this is a thing. This has been a thing for nearly a year now, possibly even longer, and like he said, it's very, very real. It's very, very dangerous. As he mentioned, he couldn't taste anything for 2.5 months and can barely get his breath back now. He's just managed to do that now. That's how serious this all is. That's how serious this all is. This is no joke. This is no conspiracy. Not everything is a conspiracy. It's real. It's very, very real. And this guy is a prime athlete. This is a guy that's been pro wrestling for over 20 years at this point. And he can still be struck down like that. Okay, so it's very real. It's very real. Please, please, everyone, be safe out there. Let's talk about Big E, because of course Big E defeated Apollo Crews on SmackDown on Friday, retaining his Intercontinental Championship. But it looks like the beef between the two WWE SmackDown superstars is far from over, because taken to Twitter, the Intercontinental Champion Big E revealed a screenshot of two now deleted Apollo Crews tweets from back in 2013. Now the first one reads, quote, damn, Big E Langston is short, with the second saying, LMAO, Big E came on the TV and my little sister and mom said, who is that? Or what is that, rather? Now, both tweets are from early 2013, not long after Big E's main roster call-up. At the time, the future member of the New Day was paired with Dolph Ziggler and AJ Lee, serving as the muscle for the show-off. The two would go on to challenge Team Hell No at WrestleMania 29 for the WWE Tag Team Championships. But the second tweet that Apollo put there came roughly 1 week after that very same WrestleMania match. Now, Crews' past jabs at Big E came 1 year before he was signed to WWE in 2014. Apollo Crews made his televised debut at the first NXT TakeOver event outside of Full Sail University, NXT TakeOver Brooklyn. Now, while he has had limited success on the main roster, Crews is a former United States champion in 2020. Since then, Crews has been drafted back to SmackDown, where he's mostly recently unsuccessfully challenged Big E for the mid-card championship, and he came up short in his first attempt. But it could seem that with these tweets, this feud may continue between Apollo Crews and Big E for the next couple of weeks at least. This is just a great reminder here that anyone out there, whether you're a professional athlete, whether you're a future WWE superstar, anyone for that matter, be careful what you tweet, because once you tweet out there, that becomes a document forever. We're living in a time now where everything you tweet is then recorded. Everything you tweet is then recorded for eternity, unless you delete it, of course. And there have been many times, this is just in the corporate world from my experience, that I've been, when I was I used to work in recruitment, when I've worked in recruitment, people check your Twitter, people check your social media, because people want to see, rightfully so, employers want to see what you are talking about, what you are saying in a public forum, because it reflects badly on the company. So a reminder, when you tweet things, be careful what you tweet. Think about what you say and what you do and what you tweet, because people remember and people can go back and check. So that is certainly interesting. As far as the feud goes, I didn't really care for it. I thought the match was fine on SmackDown on Friday. What I did think was very, very good was a segment between Paul Heyman and Apollo Crews on Talking Smack. If you haven't seen that, and Paul Heyman shares some very, very home truths with Apollo Crews as to why he lost. Apollo Crews' facial reactions, Paul Heyman's promo during that on Talking Smack, phenomenal. Phenomenal. Be sure to check that out. It is some of the best TV you will see all year, and we're only in January. It's really that good, so be sure to check that out. Speaking of the Intercontinental Championship, let's talk about Raw's mid-card title, the United States Championship, because Bobby Lashley has shot down Riddle's request for United States Championship match. Now, during Raw last week, the Legends Night, United States Champion Bobby Lashley lost to Riddle in a non-title match, suffering his first singles defeat since his loss to Drew McIntyre at last year's Backlash event in June. Now, the win came under controversial circumstances after Lashley thought he had made Riddle tap out to the Hurt Lock. With Lashley preparing to celebrate, Riddle rolled up the Hurt Business star to pick up the upset victory over the United States Champion. Now, ahead of tonight's edition of Monday Night Raw, Riddle took to Twitter and said he was still celebrating last week's victory over Lashley by getting some sweet air while hoping that Lashley gives him a shot at the United States Championship. Now, along with this tweet, Riddle posted a video clip of him preparing to ride his ATV. Riddle tweeted, quote, "Still celebrating my big victory over Bobby Lashley by getting some sweet air, and I'm really hoping he does the bro thing and gives me a shot at the United States Championship." Now, this response to Riddle was quick and swift from Bobby Lashley. He said, quote, "Enough of this BS, MVP. I want to whoop his ass in some way. He hasn't earned a title shot, but I want to dish out some hurt, hashtag WWE Raw." So possibly looks like we probably might get Bobby Lashley versus Riddle tonight. Whether or not that'll be for the United States Championship, I don't know. At one point, Riddle versus Lashley was reportedly planned for the Royal Rumble pay-per-view. However, Lashley declared his entry into the 30-man Royal Rumble match, but it is possible that the match could happen on Raw. It still could happen on the pay-per-view. There have been numerous times where singles matches have happened, and then later on in the show they enter the Royal Rumble match. So, obviously we could see the US title match happen on Raw, but we could also see it happening on the Royal Rumble pay-per-view as well. So be sure to keep an eye on that one. Tyson Kidd, former WWE superstar, now producer, TJ Wilson, aka Tyson Kidd, took to social media last night to praise Bayley. TJ called the former SmackDown Women's Champion the most improved wrestler he has ever seen, which is high praise for her. He said, quote, "Man, I have nothing but love in my heart when it comes to Bayley. I've told her personally, and I'll publicly say it, she's the most improved wrestler I've ever seen in front of my eyes. It's incredibly inspiring to see and highly contagious to be around." And look, I don't know if I agree on that, but there is no doubt Bayley, arguably on SmackDown over the past 12 months, is one of the, if not the most improved thing on the show. She was always great. Her character was always great. But the evolution, the risks she was willing to take when it came to her character, when it came to her promos, and the way that she has just blossomed and grown and become such a even better character, an even better pro wrestler all around, in the ring, promos, character work, backstage stuff, all of it. Her mannerisms, you name it, Bayley has improved on it. So it's hard to disagree with what Tyson Kidd is saying there, and Bayley is no doubt one of the best things about SmackDown, even without her SmackDown Women's Championship, even though she probably hasn't been as featured as she should have been post SmackDown Women's Championship reign, she really still has been absolutely phenomenal. And finally, let's talk about Keith Lee, because Keith Lee has done an interview with Bleacher Report, and it's got so much in there I want to break down. So, since being called up to the main roster last summer, Keith Lee has seen himself on many high-profile matches and many major title opportunities. He jumped to Monday Night Raw from NXT and immediately scored a star-making pay-per-view match victory over future Hall of Famers Randy Orton. Since then, he has been a part of victorious Team Raw at Survivor Series and won numerous singles matches on weekly TV, and even challenged WWE Champion Drew McIntyre on the first Raw of 2021. Now, while the Limitless One has had a strong start on WWE's main roster, he definitely had some growing pains when adjusting from NXT. This is so fascinating. So Lee, when asked what the biggest difference was between Raw and NXT, he said it was the level of chaos. He said, quote, "I think the nature of the beast that is this sport, it's a whirlwind in general. It's all hectic and a little chaotic. In NXT, I felt more of a controlled chaos, and I think when I came up to Raw, it became chaos all out. There were adjustments to be made and also strategic moves to be made on my part and try and make the biggest impact possible." Now that is fascinating because we always, we might even hear it today. We always hear these stories, Raw's in chaos. An hour before the show, when it's easy for me to say, we spent too much coffee today. Especially when there's been nothing announced for the show. Especially when there's been nothing announced for the show, we tend to get this, there's chaos going on backstage. Why has nothing been announced? Because nothing's been written. Everything that has been written has been changed. Keith Lee essentially confirms it there. His debut, he's thinking, right, it was a bit chaotic in NXT. That's live TV. It's every Wednesday. That's what it is. Goes to Raw, and it's just pure chaos. And nobody knows what anything's doing or what's going on. And I bet he was just like, what is going on? What is going on? So he confirms the chaos of Monday Night Raw all the time. But he also talks about the criticism of his debut on the main roster as his trademark trunks were traded for for shorts or a singlet of sorts. His popular entrance music was swapped for generic instrumentals. And speaking of the music situation, Lee admitted that he was confused as to why they had to switch. He said, quote, "That was something else. Originally, honestly, even I was a little perplexed. You get other people who come up to Raw who still use their old music. Mind you, none of them did their own music. I'm the only one that did. So it would make more sense for me to be the one to keep using my music. However, that did not happen. So they asked me to use something else. And I did. And I tried to be as accommodating as possible by putting the front of the song on that track. And it just didn't vibe. It was rough, man. I did the best I could given the circumstances. And I was like, I'll just have to ride this out until I can figure something out. Man, the way that blew up on the internet, I was like, I thought you guys were my friends. I think I'm starting to understand some things here between the gear and the music. I just got destroyed. Now, of course, in subsequent weeks, Lee was able to record a new theme for himself. Lee said the sudden shift upon his debut left him a little bit flustered, but he's glad he's been allowed to be himself in recent months. He said, quote, "I had nothing ready, nothing at all. At that point, I didn't know I'd have to change my music, so I had nothing ready. Over time, people backstage said, hey, let Keith do his own thing. And eventually they said, well, do you think you can come and write something and maybe record it again? Yeah, just give me the okay. It took me a little time, but eventually I wrote something. I got with the music guys, and over a little bit of time, we put something together that I was happy with, even though the one I'm using right now is actually a different version than the one I wanted to use. For what it is, I'm very happy to have something I at least wrote and performed." So it looks like the music situation with Keith Lee hasn't been resolved yet, but it's certainly fascinating nevertheless to see this just struggle that he's been constantly going through when it comes to this creative music gear. It's changes. It's Vince McMahon's perception of NXT. It's these changes that Vince McMahon does in NXT. It's constant. It's infuriating, but it's nothing new. It's just nothing new. But of course, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on the news stories that we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So get involved in the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome, of course, on the channel. All opinions is all about pro wrestling, sharing our opinions on pro wrestling. So get involved with the community. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button. It really does help us out here on YouTube, go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.